Hello, America. This is Mark Dunagan, your host, and this is the Daily Answer. When it comes to telling the truth, book of Ephesians chapter 4, verse 25 says, "Therefore, laying aside falsehood, speak truth, each one of you with his neighbor, for we are members of one another." That's an interesting statement, that last statement. We're members of one another. It's almost like heads up. It's kind of like a slap on the back of the head. Heads up. When you lie to others, you're lying to yourself. Don't you realize that you're all interconnected, particularly in a local congregation and in a family? You lie to others, you're lying yourself. It's like you cheat on your taxes. Hello, you're robbing yourself because you're part of the system. You're part of the government. Hey, kind of wake up, slap on the head. You're stealing from yourself. But sometimes the question comes up, well, do we really have to tell the truth in every situation? And the first way I would approach that would be, well, there's a whole lot of passages where lying does not come across as something God likes. Proverbs 6, among the things that God hates, a false witness who spreads lies. Revelation 21:8, all liars end up in the lake of fire. Okay, that's not good. And that's a pretty strong statement that picks up all liars. The devil is called the father of lies in John chapter 8. By contrast, Titus 1 and verse 2 says that God cannot lie. So if I'm messing with the truth, if I'm trying to massage the truth, who am I acting like? Who's your daddy in that situation? And then there's Ananias and Sapphira that just are trying to give the false impression. I mean, they sold a piece of property. They gave money to the Lord. The only problem is in Acts chapter 5 is that they kept back some of the price of the land. And it's not that they had to give the whole amount, because Peter will say, after you sold it, was it not your own? That was your own property. Those proceeds were that belonged to you. The problem is that they gave with the impression they were giving all. They wanted to look generous, but not pay the actual price of generosity. And so they left a false impression. And many people would consider that a rather white lie, a rather innocent lie. And God strikes them dead. And not only that, but it's Satan. How is it you've agreed with Satan and this has been conceived in your heart, and somehow you think you can lie to God? You can lie to the Holy Spirit. God considers it a tremendous insult. And so there is falsehood kind of just around the edges. The falsehood that you're given just not quite the right impression, and that's condemned. And in light of all those passages, wow, I'm really uncomfortable with the idea that there's situations where it's just okay to lie. Now, kind of a heads up. Not everyone deserves to hear everything you know. There are certain things that are private between you and another individual. There are some sensitive topics, information, and that other people just don't have a right to. That's a different category. There's also in situations that you don't have to give every single detail about that situation. Those people have no right to know. So that's a different situation. But the Bible exhorts us to tell the truth. Jesus would say in John 8:31 and 32, if we abide in his word, we'll know the truth will make you free. Keep that in mind, that principle. The teachings of Jesus will always free you, and speaking the truth is liberating. The problem of lying is you have to keep track of your lies and which lie you told to which person, and that's exhausting. But there's another danger. Another danger of lying and deviating from the truth is you end up believing the lie you're telling. And for biblical, you might say, biblical justification of that last statement, I would cite a passage like 2 Timothy 3:13, but evil men and impostors will proceed from bad to worse, deceiving and being deceived. That is, they end up buying into their own deceptions. They start out deceiving. They might start out knowing that they're not telling the truth, but sadly, they end up believing they're telling and teaching the truth. Now, the next segment of this program I owe to Jordan Peterson. My wife and I heard him speak in St. Petersburg last year, and this was something that came as a question to him from the audience. And the question was, so I'm in college. When I'm in college, and I know what the professor, the unbelieving professor, wants to hear. I know what he's trying to teach. I know what he's trying to, you might say, indoctrinate us into. Instead of arguing with him, do I just write the paper that he would want to hear, get the grade, pass the class, move on, you know, not worth arguing over, not worth taking a stand on that. And I really appreciate what he said, and I wanted to add a biblical perspective to this, to bring some scripture into this as well. He said something I thought was really insightful. He says, absolutely not. You don't write what is false. The problem with that, you end up believing what you write. I think of Proverbs 4:23. Guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it flow the springs of life. Guard your heart, guard your mind. Be very careful about what you believe. Be very careful about the practices and habits that you add, because you're going to become that. You might argue with that. No. I still know what I believe. But you start compromising like that, and it's like you're selling a part of you each time. Peterson then noted that, well, it's not going to stop there. See, if you start doing that in a class to get your to pass that class, to get your bachelor's degree, well, you go on to your master's degree, you're going to do the same thing. Then if you go on to your PhD, you're going to do the same thing. And you don't have tenure yet, so you'll do the same thing. And once you have tenure, and you might be justifying it all by saying, I'm just going to do it now. And when I am locked in, when I have security, which you never have, security is a false idea. You never have security in this world apart from God. But when I have this imaginary security, that is when I have tenure, well, then I can teach and believe what I really know to be true. Well, the trouble is, Peterson noted that he's known so many college students, teachers, and professors that went down that road, and by the time they had their PhD, and by the time that they had tenure, they didn't know what they believed anymore. Because at each step, they had sold part of themselves off. And that's what you do. That's what you do when you're not truthful. That's what you do when you let the fear of men dictate what you do. I think of John chapter 12, 42 and 43. Many of the rulers of the Jews believed in Jesus, the text says. They actually believed he was the Son of God, but they would not confess him, for they loved the favor of God rather than the favor of man. And that changed them. They were not the same person. Don't think that you can lie or you can compromise or whatever and you're still the same you. No, you've just sold off part of you. You're a little bit different person now than when you were before. You're a little less convicted. You're a little less honest. You're a little less bold. And if you sell off enough of those pieces, well, you get tenure and you'll find out you sold off all of you and you don't even know who you are anymore, because you just got rid of all the properties throughout that process. Now, he also said, and I think this is fair, don't just write a paper that's a rant. Craft your words well. Choose your words well. Bible would agree. The Bible would agree with the importance of selecting your words correctly, being precise in your language. Colossians 4:6, let your speech always be with grace, as though seasoned with salt, so you will know how you should respond to each person. So, I mean, you could write a rant like a rough draft and then go back through and, get it all out, get out of your system, represent the other side fairly, represent the point of view being taught by the professor fairly, represent what he's really teaching. In the paper, explain throughout the paper, you perfectly understand that point of view, you understand the arguments, etc., and here is where you disagree. Typically, most professors, hopefully still, will give you a good grade for a well-written paper that they don't agree with. If they don't, and I think he was right on this point, if they don't, then you're wasting. What are you doing at that institution? You don't need them. Young people, we live in a day and age that you, the student, you're not at the mercy of these colleges. These colleges need you. There are so many ways to get your education, online, etc. There are so many options you have to get a great career out there. You don't have to go to college. The trades are desperate. The trades where you can end up making six figures and having a very comfortable life. Electrical, HVAC, plumbing, you name it. The trades, truck drivers, individuals that deliver petroleum or gas to gas stations or whatever. Those trades are desperate for young, qualified people that can pass a drug test, that will be respectful, that are willing to learn, that can take criticism, and that will show up on time. You are in the driver's seat in this generation. And if some college says, well, we're not going to give you a good grade, bye-bye. I'm taking my, why give your hard-earned money to a corrupt institution? You have many options. You don't need them. They need you. You're in the driver's seat. You're not at their mercy. In a sense, they're definitely at your mercy. And here's the thing, a lot of them don't realize it. You got so many choices. You're in control. Now, and you might say, well, it's just this once. No, it's not. You get in the habit of massaging the truth and watering down the truth. The rest of your life, you're going to be put on the spot in all sorts of different situations. You might as well get used to being bold now. And don't be afraid. Well, if I say what I really believe, I'll get lit up. Yeah, maybe so. But I typically find if you hold to your guns, don't apologize, and you say, well, let's debate this. Let's talk about it. Give me your best argument. Typically, the wicked always flee. The wicked flee. Oh, they may threaten, but you've got the truth. And so hold to your guns and stand with God and be like Daniel or Joseph, and you'll find they may not be your friend, but I find that often they will respect you. And not only that, but whoever's bullying you will leave you alone when they realize you don't want to tackle with that young person. They know what they believe. They got truth on their side. And they're not afraid to use the sword of the Spirit, and they're not afraid to go to the heart with it. I mean, yeah, they're ready for battle. They're a warrior, not messing with them. That's what you will often find. If you're going down a career path, be honest enough to realize when this career and being a Christian are not going to work together. that this is a career that I am not going to have time for worship. I'm not going to be able to worship. Or this is a career I'm not going to have time for a wife and kids. I'm not going to be able to give them what I need to give them. Be wise enough to realize that you're entering a field that in order to enter this field, I have to sign something, and I don't believe that thing that I'm going to sign. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to compromise yourself. You've got plenty of options out there for things to do in life. Just make sure it's a good job, that you can spiritually grow, that you have time for God and worship, that God can still come number one, and that company is not foolish enough to think that they're supposed to come before your wife and kids. Don't buy into that. It's not worth it. It's not worth it. If you're in a college and you're taking some Bible classes and you're just going like, well, I'm going to be a nurse. Why do I need these Bible classes? Well, here's why. Because you're going to face life and death. You could be around dying people. You're going to be around dying people that don't know what's next. You're going to need God to keep your head on straight. You're going to need God to keep your feet on the ground, because you're going to see death, suffering, pain. People depart from this life completely unprepared for the next life. Yeah, you're going to see real stuff. Those Bible classes that you're taking, that's the most important classes that you could have, because that will keep you mentally and spiritually together during the hard stuff that's up ahead. This is Mark Dunagan for the Daily Answer. We'll see you in the Funny Papers.